Hi, this is PG of PG's Lumacy. In this tutorial, we will be making Sven, the reindeer from the Disney movie Frozen. The bands that we need for this project will be light brown or cream colored bands for the antlers, dark brown for the top of the head, white for the front part of the body, light gray for some portions of the face and the hooves, some black bands for the tips of the hooves, and dark gray bands for the body and the legs. You will also need two beads for the eyes, and they are mini pony beads that you can get from the craft store. You will also use some toothpicks to secure your pieces as you set them aside for assembly later. We will use the loom in its standard offset configuration, which means the pins are staggered and the arrow will be pointing downwards. This project will be done in several steps, and there are pieces that we need to prepare beforehand. First, we need to make the head part, and before we make the head part, we need to prepare the antlers. And then we also need to make the legs, the front legs and the hind legs, before we work on the main body. Let us start working on the antlers. To make the antlers, we will form a chain of double loop bands on one side of the loom. And we will need 10 double loop bands for that chain. To make a double loop band, all we need to do is to place a single band on two pins and then twist on one end and loop it back. And that will form a double looped band. Let's do that again. Place a single band on two pins, twist on one end, and then loop it back. Another way of making a double looped band would be to get a single band, twist it, and you fold it to itself. And that forms a double loop band, and you place that on the loom. Let's do that again. You get a single band, you twist it, and then you fold it to itself. That forms a double loop band, and you place it on the loom. So it's up to you what technique you would like to use for creating this chain of double loop bands. But like I said, we need to place 10 of these double loop bands in a chain. That is 10 double loop bands on a chain. Now, using the same technique, we will add the branches to the antler. And so you count 1, 2, the second band. On its bottom end, you attach a double loop band. Okay. You will see that it is attached diagonally from this pin to this pin in the center. And then we add another double loop band to these pins. Okay, and then count another 2 bands. 1, 2. On this pin over here, we attach our second branch. And then we place a double loop band here and another one to this end over here, attached vertically. So that's the second branch. Now we count 4 bands. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the bottom of this 4th band, we attach our next branch. Okay, so we put a double looped band. And then we add another double loop band. And another double loop band. Now we will add one more branch to this section over here, and we will place 3 double loop bands going vertically from this section. Okay, so that's 1. Let's use the other technique. Twist, fold, and then place. Okay. Twist, fold, and then place. So there you have the layout of the bands for the antler. Take note of where the branches are attached, and we will be adding capping bands looped 5 times to the ends of these branches. To add a capping band, all you need to do is to loop a band, and this time we're doing it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that forms the capping band for the end of the branches. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have to do that for the rest of the ends of these branches. We are now ready to loop the bands, and we will start looping from the bottom, starting from the ends of the branches, going upwards on the loom. So let us start with this last chain that we added. Grab the double loop bands from underneath the capping band, and you have to hold the capping band with your thumb to secure it so it won't snap off the pin, and then loop the double band forward. Okay, until you get to where it branches. Now let us add this, or let us loop this one now. Go into the capping band, grab the double band underneath, hold on to the capping band with your thumb, and then loop the band forward. all the way to where it branches over here. Now let us work on this one. Go into this capping band, grab the double loop band underneath, hold on to the capping band, and then loop the double band to its forward pin. All the way to where it branches. Now let us loop this chain of bands over here. Be careful in looping these bands because they're double loop bands and they're stretched pretty tightly, so they might break. Okay. Now let us work on this branch. Make sure that you loop these bands before you loop this band, because if you do it in the wrong order, then some of the bands may be detached when you are taking this piece off the loom. Okay. Now let's work on this branch over here. And then loop all the way to the top. Now to get this piece off the loom, I want to start with the branches, so it will be easier to pull it off the loom. So let us start with the branches. I use my hook to pry them off. Be careful, especially if you're using old bands like I am, so they don't get broken. Okay, so we've pulled the branches off the loom, and now let us pull this main branch or this main chain off the loom. Secure the top loops with the hook, and then being very careful, pull the piece off the loom. When you have thick layers of bands like this, you may want to use another hook to pry them off the loom so that they don't break. And there you have one of the antlers. You secure it with a toothpick so that you could set it aside. Just even out the stretching on the bands, and using a pair of tweezers you can fine-tune the shape. Okay, pull on the capping bands like so to even out the loops. and to define the shape of the antler even more. So here is one of the antlers for Sven, and you need 2 of these pieces. Let us work on the head. We will be using double bands for the headpiece, and for the top of the head we will be using dark brown double bands. Let's place them on the top pins, and then diagonal bands from this pin to the top, and let's do that on the other side as well. Next, let us place a row of light gray double bands. If you don't have light gray bands, you can use white for this section. Then we will place one more pair of light gray bands in the middle, and on the sides we will use dark gray double bands. Then dark gray double bands in the middle, and then diagonal bands from this pin to the center and on the other side as well. We will place a capping band on this pin, and it will be looped 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Now for the ears, we will place them on these pins over here, and they're double dark brown bands as well. And then we will place capping bands on the ears on this section over here. So let's do this first pin. We will loop the capping band 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do that on this other side. Sometimes it might help to turn the loom around for the capping bands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these bands will form the ears. Okay, now let us place the horizontal bands that will hold this piece together. For the horizontal bands, we will place double bands, double looped bands for this row. Okay. And then another double loop band on this row. Actually, let's use all double loop bands, but this time let's use a dark gray double loop band. Okay, if you find that hard to do that way, you could use the other technique in making the double loop band. Let me show that. You get a single band, you twist it, you fold it to itself, and that forms the double loops, and then place on the pins. So that is the layout for the head piece. Let us now loop these bands. So there are 3 pairs of bands on this pin. So let's start with the pair of bands on the top, which is this pair. So go into the capping band and then grab the pair of bands on the top. Hold on to the capping band and then loop to the forward pin. The next pair will be this pair. So grab them, get them out of the pin, and then loop to the forward pin. And then we get the center bands. We loop them to the forward pin. Okay, let's continue looping. Okay. Now before we proceed looping the bands in this section, let us first place the band that will have the beads for the eyes. And to make that band, you will need a single light gray band or whatever color band you are using for this section, and string the beads with the single band. So the whole of the bead is big enough to do this without any tools. Okay, so you get the 2 beads onto the single band like so, and then you will place the ends of that band on these pins over here. So let's place that one here and one in there, and those are the beads for the eyes. And let's skip this middle band for now, this middle pair of bands for now. Let's work on the sides because we will be adding the antler to this pin later. Let us first work on these side bands to get the ears out of the way. So let's loop this pair of bands. And then take note of how I will do the ears. Instead of looping this band forward, I will actually go into this capping band and then loop this band backwards. Let me show that. Okay, so you go into this capping band and then you grab the double band underneath, get them off the pin on the top, and then loop backwards or downwards if you want to refer to it that way. Let's do that for this other side. Remember, you have a capping band here on top. So you go into that capping band, you grab this band, and then you get it out of the pin and then loop it backwards. And that will form the ear. But I forgot to loop this band, so let me just get this out of the way. I'm sorry about that. I'll just put it here temporarily because this band should be looped first. Okay, and then just replace that band over here. So that gets the band for the ears out of the way. Now get this capping band off the pin carefully and just let it go to the side like so. Okay, and then get this one out of the pin as well, and then just let it go to the side like so, this capping band. Okay, with that we are now ready to attach the antlers to this pin. Remember the antlers that we made earlier? We made 2 of them. So we are going to attach the loop, the end loops of the antlers to this pin. And take note that I shaped my antlers so they're mirror images of each other. I stretched and shaped the antler so that it will have a curvature, a slight curvature. And I made them into mirror images, just like Sven's antlers. So when you place them, you will make sure that they are mirrored to each other. So let's place this other one. Okay. Just leave it there. And then this other one. You might want to turn around the loom for this other side. It's just easier to place on the pin. Okay. And leave it like so. Okay. Now that we have the antlers in place, we can now loop this middle pair of bands that we skipped earlier. We will loop that out of the pin, in between the beads for the eyes, and onto this pin over here. Okay, now let's work on, let me just set this aside. Let's work on this pair of bands. You go into this thick layer of bands, grab the double bands in the bottom. Okay, hold on to the earpiece. Okay, and then pull the antler piece a little bit to the side so that the band will go over the middle section over here. Okay, you don't want this branch of the antler being caught into this band over here. That's why I am pulling it a bit to the side so that my band stretches over this section over here. Let's do that on the other side. Grab the band in the bottom, pull it out of the pin, pull the antler a little bit out of the way, and then loop the band, just so this branch doesn't get caught into this band over here. And don't forget this middle band. We need to loop it. You grab it from underneath these antler loops and the other bands, holding it, get it out of the pin, and then okay, make sure they're out of the pin, and then pull and loop to the top. When I was making the prototype for this, I forgot to loop this band and my project fell apart. So with that, you now grab a single band to secure these top loops, go into these bands, get the single band, and then form a knot, secure, and That will be the layout for the head of Sven and the antlers in place. So let's pull this entire piece off the loom. For heavy layers of bands, you may want to use the end of a hook to get the heavy layers off the loom so that they don't break. Sometimes if you forcibly pull them, they will break, and you don't want that. Okay, so this will now be the head piece for Sven. Fine tune the shape so that the antlers are mirroring each other, and then get the eye pieces out. Okay, and then form the snout. I wanna push into this bottom piece, bottom section, so that the snout will be roundish. And then I grab a single dark gray band and then do a double loop just to define the snout even more. Okay, and then fine tune the placement for the eyes. Okay, stretch out. You want this section to be wider and this section to be a little bit narrower. So stretch out, press in to define that shape. And then use your tweezers to position the eyes like so. So that forms the head for Sven. Before we work on the main body, let us first prepare the legs. Let's start with the front legs. First, you will need 2 dark gray bands, and we will place them on these top pins on one side. To this, we will add 6 double looped bands. So that's 1, So to the first 2 bands, we added 6 double looped bands. Then we add the hoof. For that, we use light gray bands, and we're using 3 light gray bands. And we will add a capping band. We will use black, a single black band looped 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. So that will form the leg, the front leg for Sven. Let's loop this. Okay. go into the capping band, grab the 3 bands and loop. And then loop the double loop bands. And then loop the 2 bands at the top. And then you grab a toothpick, secure the top loops, and then pull this entire piece off the loom. And this will form Sven's front leg. Okay. Pull onto this band over here to form an angle so that the hoof will be at an angle with the leg. Okay, so this will form Sven's front leg. You need 2 of these pieces, so make another one. Now we will make the hind legs in the same way that we made the front legs. We just have to add 1 additional step, and that would be the double bands at the top. So let's put dark gray double bands. We need 2 pairs for the top part of the leg. And then we add 2 dark gray bands to these bands in here. And then, like we did for the front leg, we will add 6 double loop bands. Okay, to that we will add the hoof, and that's again 3 light gray bands or white bands if you don't have light gray bands, and then add a capping band looped 3 times on this pin. Now let us loop this. Okay, now when you get to this band over here, you grab it from the band below, and then instead of looping it to this pin over here, you loop it to this pin over here, thus connecting the 2 top bands together. Okay, and then you loop to the top. So your hind leg will have 2 loops or 2 ends, and you grab a toothpick and you secure those loops and then get the piece of the loom. So these will be your hind legs. Like I said, they have two top ends and they have a very similar shape to the front leg. And you will need two of these pieces, so you will have to make another one. Now that we have prepared the legs, we are ready to work on the main body. Let's place two dark gray bands on the top center pins, and then we will place another two dark gray bands diagonally on these top pins, and let's do that on the other side as well. Now let us add two dark gray bands, and let's do that on the other side as well. Okay, now let us add a row of dark gray bands, double bands on this row. For the next row, we will only place dark gray bands on the sides. On the center, we will place white bands. Now we will add 4 rows of white double bands on the next rows. Again, that is 4 rows of double white bands. In the bottom of this layout, we will add double white bands diagonally from this pin to the one on the center, and we will do that on the other side as well. Now let us add the leg pieces that we prepared earlier, starting with the front legs. Remember I told you to pull on this band over here so that the leg will be at an angle with the hoof. When you place your leg on the pin, make sure that this hoof is pointing at you. Okay. And the same goes for the other side. That will form the front legs. Now for the hind legs, remember the hind legs had 2 end loops. You will place one of the end loops on this pin and the other on the pin below it. Okay. Let's do that with the hook. Okay. That's one end. this is the other end. Okay, so those are the two end loops for the hind legs. And then again, make sure that you angle the hoof where it's pointing at you, like this. Let's do that for the other side. Okay. Let's not use the hook this time. Carefully get the toothpick out. Okay. It's easier with the hook, but I just wanted to show you another method. Okay, so that is for the hind legs. Now let us add the horizontal pins that will hold the piece together. And you will be using the same color band that is in the section that you're placing the horizontal band in. So this is a single band for this section over here, and then another single band for this section over here. And then let us use a white band this time. This time let us place a double looped band. Twist it and then you loop it back. That forms the double loop band. Okay, then one more double loop band on this section. Okay, then single bands for these sections over here. Okay, and these horizontal bands will hold the shape together. So this is how the layout will look like after you have placed the bands for the body and attached the legs. Now let us attach the head to the main body. Before you attach the head to the main body, first let us loop these diagonal bands. Okay, you grab them from underneath the end loops of the legs and then loop to the center. Okay, let's work on the other side. Go into this band from the leg, pull out the two diagonal bands and then loop to the center. And we will attach the head to this pin over here. And to attach the head, you see the head over here, we turn and go to the underside of the head, and we will fish out this band over here. Okay, we will fish this band out. And there's a double band that's in here. We will fish that out. Okay. There. See that? We fished out that double band. And then we attach that to this pin over here, and then we just, okay, there you go. Okay, so now we get this pair of bands, and then loop it to the forward pin. So now that the head is attached and it's being held on by this band over here. And so we will loop the rest of the bands. Okay. We will loop them forward. Okay. When you get to the section with the legs, just go for, you were looking for these bands over here. Let's go underneath all those bands, grab these double bands and loop over the leg piece. Same goes for the other side. We are looking for these bands over here. Grab them from underneath all those bands, get them out of the pin, and then loop over the leg piece. Okay, and then we loop the middle band, then the diagonal bands up top. Okay, now we push down these bands over here so we could add the bands for the tail. So to add the tail, you will grab 3 light gray bands and you will loop these bands twice. 1, 2, push down. 1, 2, push down. 1 and 2, push down. So this will be the layout for the bands after you're done looping them. And we are now ready to secure these bands and get the piece off the loom. Grab a single dark gray band and then go into all these bands and get your single dark gray band into all these bands over here. Tie a knot and secure. Okay, and then you get your entire piece off the loom. Okay, make sure the end loops are held securely by this band over here. And stretch out the piece, fine-tune the shape. And for the eyes, you get a felt marker and just draw the pupils on the eyes. Don't make them too big. Okay, make them like they're meeting towards the center of the face. And then this Sven figure will be posed with his rear end in the air. His head will be down like so, and then you will fold these hind leg pieces so that they will prop up his rear end like so, and then his head is on the ground. Fine-tune the shape of the antlers so they're pointing upwards, curved a little bit, and then stretch out his front legs. Okay. And so he will look like this from the front. And there you have it, Sven the reindeer from Disney's Frozen.